All right, Everson.
There he is. How you doing, Pete?
Hey man, what's going on? Hey Scotty, can you turn him up a little bit? There's Chuck Everson, and basically what is like a museum,
Yeah, a little bit.
right?
Well, listen, there's a lot of Villanova stuff in here, and then there's some family stuff, but and I've got all the championships represented, Pete. It's not just '85.
Not just '85.
No.
You are the lighthouse in 1985, and I keep people coming back. Hang on, get a little. You hear that? Okay, how about now? Okay, that's better. All right, so Chuck, I want to ask you a little bit about Big East Rewind, and what exactly is it? If you don't know, because I know what the Big East meant to me, but you tell me.
Well, my partner Sonny Sparrow and I, Sonny played for Syracuse, and of course I played at Villanova, and we came about this. I did a show called the Hoya Locker Room with Gene Smith and Billy Martin. It was the first time that I know of that players from those teams got together and chopped it up about Big East, and I said, you know what, I could do that, and I grabbed Sonny. Sonny and I knew each other from my visit. And we talk all about the old school Big East up till current day. We kind of bridge the past with the present. And we've had everybody you can think of come on. It's been really a cool ride. And the friendships that have come out of this, Pete, are incredible. I mean, I was at the Villanova-Georgetown game last week with Reggie Williams and his wife as my guest. And people's heads were snapping like, what are they doing together? What's going on? And it's been awesome. I mean, I've been out with him. He was on the show. We talked about the event, the whole incident at halftime. For those of you that don't know, I took a shot in the face from Reggie, and it gave me my 15 minutes of fame, Pete. I've milked that for 40 years, buddy. I don't know anybody else that could do that. I owe a debt of gratitude to the Villanova marketing department, because I milked that for 40 years. And I said to Reggie, I think I owe you dinner. He said, you do. So we went to dinner, and we've been friends ever since.
So, but you were kind of carrying the torch for a lot of us that remember the Big East and just how amazing it was. What does it mean for you to kind of be able to continue that legacy?
Well, it's a labor of love, obviously, Pete. The Big East, Villanova, it's I'm kind of figuring out that that's what I do without even really knowing what I do. It's bringing guys together. I have text threads with the guys because I've gotten a lot of numbers from the different teams. So I have a Providence, a Seton Hall, a St. John's, a Georgetown. So if anything's going on in those groups, I just say, hey, listen, by the way, this happened or that happened. Or, oh, thanks, So it's kind of cool because now I go to games and guys from other teams are coming over to me and talking, and guys that I never would have really had a relationship with, but it's so much fun because there is that bond there. When you played in that conference, especially back then when it was tough and rugged, and when you played in that conference, I mean, we went through the same stuff. We just wore different uniforms. That was basically what I'm finding out after doing this for 4 years.
You've done such a tremendous job, but also, like you mentioned at the beginning, bridging the gap. Like some of the guys you've had on, like I listened to or watched Jalen Brunson's coming on. Some of the bigger names in the NBA today are now featured on this show, and I think that's amazing. I mean, it's hard for NBC in New York to get to Jalen Brunson, but Chuck Everson can.
Well, it's funny because I'll tell you how that happens, right? I mean, Jalen's a different guy because we know him from Villanova, and Villanova is family, as you know, okay? But other guys that we've had on, I'll interview somebody, and everybody's hesitant because they're not really sure what we do. As you know, in this business, there's a lot of negative stuff. People want to hear about the dirt and all. We're not interested in that. We're interested about what happened in the locker room on the bus ride. We're interested in your career, all the good stuff that everybody likes to talk about. And when they leave, they have a comfort level with Sonny and I, and they feel really good about it. And you go, hey, Chuck, you know who I can get for you? I can get this guy or that guy. Well, get him. Call me, and I will. We'll put him on. And we've had people from all walks, all different views. We've had officials on. We've had Froggy Paparo and Timmy Higgins on, and they're telling stories about stuff that happened in the game that we had no idea. You would never know unless you were in the game. You know what I mean? we've had mascots on. We've had we've had assist with media people. We've had everybody on, and have gotten a real 360-degree view of the conference.
So the 85 team gets back together last week.
Yeah.
Share a little bit about that experience and some of the memories that were brought up.
Well, it's always fun when we get together, and the good news about that is we may not have been in the same room in about 10 years, but I'm always in touch with everybody. I talk to 2 or 3 guys a week, and not always the same guys, and we get together in small groups. But it was so good to have everybody back, and we had such a great turnout. We lost Velcher Dawson. Velcher passed away 2 years ago, and then Connolly Brown, his last assignment with the FBI was in Senegal, Africa. So now he's doing the security for the African Basketball League. So he's based in Senegal, so he couldn't make it. And we had everybody else there. The whole first 8, the guys that all played in the game were all there. The starters were there. Gary McLean was there. Eddie Pinkney, Dwayne, everybody was there, and it was a lot of fun. We had Villanova did a terrific job of putting it together, especially Arlisha Davison, who was Jay's right-hand person and now is Kyle Neptune's right-hand person. She does a good job, and she has me work with her on certain things when it comes to the basketball alums, which is really great because I'm in touch with basically everybody.
Yeah, because you got the keys.
That's right.
But you show great support. I previously, Chuck, my mother who's 80 and working in the athletic department, you reach out to someone like her, and you make her, month or year or whatever, by including her in something like that.
Yeah.
And I know that because I got a front row seat to it, and I can never thank you enough for that. But there's also guys on your team who I'm sure this connection continues to enthuse, right? I mean, because we all go back. I talked to some of my Richmond football teammates yesterday for about 30 minutes, and it's just it's a special deal. And by the way, unfortunately, I'm so happy these guys are getting paid now, but they're not getting the same experiences that you guys got, and I don't know that they'll have the relationships.
I tend to agree with you, Pete. I mean, it's difficult. Listen, whether we win or lose on April 1st, this would still be the way it is because I'm the guy that's doing it, And we included everybody we could think of. Your mom was one. Also, Coach Harry Booth, who passed away. We invited his children and wife to come. They came. One of his sons was there with his mom. So it was awesome. That's the way Coach Mass wanted it. I'm just trying to carry his legacy as best I can. He wanted everybody to be together as family, and we can try to continue that to the best that we can. And that's basically what it's all about. But when you talk about having guys that are, from different walks of life, and everybody goes through it, Pete. Everybody goes through life. You have your ups and your downs. And when you can pick up the phone and call any one of those 14 guys, and they'll be there for you. We had a couple of guys had issues. Hey, Chuck, I'm in the car. I said, I tell my wife, I'll see you later. I got to go see Dwight, or I got to go see Brian, or I got to go see Harry, or, whoever. And that's the way it is with us, and it's like that with a lot of teams. You just don't hear about it as much, but, and some teams, to be honest with you, don't have that bunch, and they look at us and they go, how do you do that? We want that. How do we get that? So we're very fortunate as the group that played for Coach Mass.
So what was your favorite story that was recanted last week around the 85 team? I know there were a lot of them.
Well, there's a million of them. Listen, and you know what? The stories are told thousands of times, and we laugh just as hard 40 years later, which is really funny. But I'll tell you something that happened over the last couple of years that I actually told Thursday night. Some of the guys didn't know this. Definitely the people that were in the room, your mom included, didn't know this. And Coach Mass's, one of his favorite haunts was a place called Maris on Passyunk in South Philadelphia. Just down the road from Pat's and Gino's, not far from there at all. And he would go in there, and I'm looking on Facebook one day, Pete, and I see Rolly Massimino's favorite. That's the name of the dish that's on the menu. That's all it says, Rolly Massimino's favorite. I said, I have to go. So I have sites there, I have customers there, and my boss, I told him, I said, hey, look, we got to go to this place for lunch. We're the first ones there, okay? So nothing is open. They just opened. The music's not even on yet, all right? So as a freshman, to set this up, as a freshman, you had to sing for your supper. Okay, that was part of the ritual of becoming part of the team. All right, and it was like an American Idol type of thing. You know, we had some guys that were good, and we had some guys that were really, really bad, like William Hung. You know, Wyatt Maker was the William Hung of our team. Okay, so he wrote the words to "Eye of the Tiger" on his hand, and he was so nervous he sweated them off, and the only song he knew was the Brady Bunch song. So he sang the Brady Bunch. And what would happen is guys like John Pannone and Mulquin and those guys, at pregame meal, we had toast, and they had a little dish of honey in front of each guy. So if you were bad, they would dip the toast in honey and pelt you with pieces of toast, and Wyatt was covered from head to foot. But there were two guys that were really good. Steve Lapis did a great rendition of My Girl, and every time we get together, Steve sings it. And Neil McShay, who was a manager for our team, he did Under the Boardwalk. And every time we got together, whether it was in Florida or whatever, Coach Mass would say, Neil, sing the song, okay? So we sit down. Now I'm back at the restaurant. We sit down, and I order Coach's favorite meal, and it's a rigatoni with broccoli rabe. I got a little side of sausage, okay, with white sauce on everything, okay? So I knew it's the white sauce because being around him enough, I know what it is, and a glass of wine. And the guy brings over the meal. He puts it down in front of me, and the music goes on. And what's the song playing on the stereo is Under the Boardwalk. So I was like, what? I said, so I look at my boss. I go, hey, I think I'm having a moment here. What song is on the speaker? He said, Under the Boardwalk. I said, I took a big dish of pasta. I said, here you go, Coach. I had lunch with Coach Mass. So I called RC, his son. I said, I think I just had lunch with your dad. He goes, what are you talking about? And I tell him the story. He goes, the hair on the back of my neck is standing up, Chuck. I said,
mine too.
It's crazy. Yep.
Oh, man, that's so great. Now, you go to the game. Villanova basketball is it's up and down.
Yeah.
You know? The support around that, and I'm not asking you for any dirt or anything, but like, what are you making of the situation there right now, as opposed to when you played? What is different now?
Well, there's a lot different. I mean, the first thing that's different is when we played, we were there 4 years. You know, now kids can jump and leave whenever they want. You know, it's hard when Villanova's got a culture that Coach Mass started. And Jay continued it, and Jay polished it up and gave it names for different things. You know, we play for those who came before us and stuff like that. Now Kyle's trying to do the same thing, but how do you do that when you got 8 or 9 guys that are brand new every year? How do you develop that culture? I mean, it's very difficult, and he's having a hard time with some of the guys. And we had Eric Dixon on the show, and I said to Eric, I said, how do do we have to reinvent our culture, or do we? He goes, no, these guys are going to be okay. They're getting it. He goes, they want to learn. Some teams that we've had no interest in that because they weren't going to. They all knew they're not going to be there for the long term. It's it goes back to your point earlier, Pete, when with the closeness of our team versus these other teams. We have a lot of basketball alums that come back for all these events, sometimes over 100. There's I think Summer Jam is 150 guys there that played. So now what happens is those guys aren't going to come back because they played for one season, So I mean, it's difficult. That's the most difficult thing. That and the fact that I think the NIL they have a handle on. Randy Foy's got a group that's working with those guys. I don't think that is as big an issue as people may think, but the portal is what's really hurting teams like Villanova, like Seton Hall, some of the teams in that kind of basket. St. John's to a certain degree. I mean, but now Rick Pitino's there, so that's different. You got a Hall of Fame coach who was a former Big East coach back in the Big East. So it makes it tough when you have somebody like Kyle who's doing a good job, but he's new to coaching. This is only his 4th year, I believe. He had 1 year at Fordham, and now this is his 3rd at Villanova. So,
being here, I don't get as many Big East games as I was like. I did Seton Hall and Taylor last year, the Big East 12 battle, and I got a chance to see one of Shaheen Holloway's shoot-rounds. And boy, he is intense. He's old school, man. He is old school, and it's like old school Big East. And you don't see that at many other schools with many other coaches. Yeah. And it's cool to see how he brings an extension of that, right, into what he's doing now. But you just don't see it. You don't see it that often, and it's kind of a missing piece. Speaking of guys like Shaheen, or I know Fran Fraschilla, but who's your favorite guest? One of the guys, like you had Lou Carnesecca on shortly before he passed, which was
was awesome.
I imagine that was
I mean, that was probably the most fun that we've had. Him and Patrick Ewing. We had a great time with Patrick. I've never seen Ewing do an interview where he's hysterical laughing the whole interview, you know? And a lot of it had to do with, I mean, one of the things I said to him when, you know, at that time he was coaching, and he walked in, and the people at the Garden were asking him for ID. So he had to walk the kid onto the court and go, my ID's up in the rafters. So we told him, hey, even though Sonny's an Orangeman, we don't want you to get upset, Pat. I promise you nobody's going to ask you for ID. And he cracked up loud. He knew exactly what we were doing, you know. And with Louis, we were trying to get Coach for over a year, and his people that help him out were a little bit hesitant because of his age and everything. I said, look, he doesn't know electronics. I said, he don't have to know anything. I said, I'll come to him. So we actually sat in his kitchen and interviewed him, okay? And he was great. I mean, he was as sharp as a tack, knew everything, knew names, remembered things. We didn't go crazy. We kept him for like 40 minutes. But then he wanted us to stay, and he said, I'll tell you a funny story. This is hilarious, actually. He says to us, bring it in, like he's still coaching. You know, we're at the kitchen table. He goes, I want to thank you guys for getting me out of jail today. I said, what do you mean? He goes, I live with 4 women. My wife's got Alzheimer's. She don't know who I am. She's got a caregiver. I have somebody who takes care of me. She speaks Spanish. I don't. And my housekeeper is Polish. She doesn't speak English. So you guys are really saving me. I said, oh, okay. Let me get you a piece of cake and a cup of coffee. Like the old Italian thing, you know? Like, I don't want you to talk bad about me. Okay, Coach. So he gets us the cake and the coffee. First, he's calling for the Polish lady to... He goes, Chuck, what did she defect? She don't answer me. Did she defect? Did she go back to Poland? So we're laughing. We're hysterical. So we get the coffee, and I go, Coach, here. I said, now we can't talk about you. We got the cake. So he goes, well, that doesn't do anything for your intelligence, does it, Chuck? So I looked at him. So and there's 2 guys that help him out. They're going, Chuck, come on now. And I said, hey, stop. I'm looking at Louis dead in the face, and I said, I know what that means. And he's shaking his head, yes. I said, that means I'm down with the St. John's guys. I said, all I need now is the blessing from the Pope of St. John's, and I do one of these. And he blessed me. Right? So he says, hey, Everson. I said, yeah, here's your penance. I said, okay, don't ever come in my house wearing a Villanova shirt ever again. So I had a Villanova shirt. He goes, don't ever come here like that again. So about 3 weeks later, Sonny and I take Coach out for lunch. He's got a spot around the corner. It was a nice day. I called Ron and Reno, and they had us, you know, Coach met us at the place. So we walk in. We went to the St. John's bookstore. We walk in with St. John's hats on, you know, just because of what he said. And he goes, "Now that's much better. Give me those hats." And he signed both of them. So he was great, man.
I got to imagine what you do, you know, in the later stages of his life. That had to be a day that he still or talked about.
He talked about it for months, because I would always call and check up on him, and you know, and you know what else too? I mean, I'm tight with Ronnie Stewart. Ronnie was a Brentwood guy, and Ronnie played for Coach, and Billy Winnington and some of those guys I know pretty well. And I call him and I say, hey man, you need to get back in town and go see Coach before you can't see him anymore, you know? So I said, because I went through it. I knew when Coach was getting sick, Coach Mass. Yeah. I knew that I had to go a couple more times, you know, and it might be inconvenient for me, but you'll never regret it. You know, spending extra time with your coach. And a lot of those guys did come back and see him, which was great.
All right, so you've everybody on the show. Give me your last question for you. Who's the one you're still seeking to
Chris
get.
Mullin.
It's either hard to get in touch with because some guys, as you know, either flake out on us, or they're just like,
Chris Mullin. Without even thinking, Chris Mullin.
Yeah.
You know, because Chris is a great guy. I played in the men's leagues with Chris for years. My daughter went to St. John's for her doctorates and stuff, and we took her down to meet Coach Mullin at the time. So she comes in. She goes, okay, you know, Pinckney. You know, she calls Pinckney Uncle Ed. She calls Harold Uncle Harold. You know. So Pinckney says he's on FaceTime with Chris, and he goes, I don't know what those guys are doing, but take care of my niece. So Chris looks at her and says, what do you want? She goes, I need gear, I need seats, and I need you to beat these guys. I'm really tired of listening to them. So Chris gives her a big hug, takes care of her, and you know, I've talked to Chris's brothers. I've talked to Chris's agent. I've talked to Eddie Pinckney. I've talked to Ron Stewart. They all call Chris. Chris says, yep, I'm in. I have his number. I have his brother's numbers, you know, because we used to play all the time. And Ghost. So I'm looking to run into Chris so I can just physically get him in person.
I never see him on any interviews. You know what's
No, he doesn't do hardly anything. Yep.
Part of my story is I'm a smoker guy. So whenever he talks about sobriety in one way or another, which is cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, you never see him. He is like a ghost.
No, I know. So he's the guy right now that listen, some of the guys that we've gotten requests to talk to guys. Walter Berry was a guy that everybody wanted to talk to. And we got Walter. I kept contacting him through Facebook, and I know him. I mean, he knows me, I know him. And so I literally run into him at the Big East tournament last year. And I said, Walt, come on. He goes, yeah, I didn't think that was you. I thought that was somebody. I said, who's going to impersonate me, Walt? Come on. So he goes, here's my private number. Call me. I promise you I'll come on. And he was great. He was great, you know. And so usually when they're hesitant and then they come on, they have such a good time. They want, when can I do it again? You know, that's been the.
He loved it, dude.
Yeah, Timmy's great. I mean, you know, he's our guy. Timmy's our guy, and he's been on twice, I think. And when you know, I make it a point to when I come into an arena, I always look to see who's doing the game. And whenever Tim's doing a game, or Raft, or John Fanta, those three guys in particular, those are our guys. You know, we go over and say hi to all those guys, and you know, and you know, cut it up with them. And Tim has been fantastic. You know, he's been such a supporter of what Sonny and I do, and he's always posting stuff on X about us and things. So we appreciate him and the other two guys too. John Fanta, another guy just like that, and Raft. Raft, I give a pass. We know Raft 30 years pretty much because he's always been around the program, but he's not an IT guy. He's not real savvy with some of the social media stuff. But we know he loves us and we love him.
Chuck, man, I love you, and I appreciate everything you do. Villanova family, and the fact that you are able to put this show out there for us to consume it and to relive some of the great moments and to be a part of some of the great moments to come. And it's real cool, man. So Big East Rewind is the show. Man, is Chuck Everson. Chuck, anything else?
Well, yeah, you can get us on. We're on Sirius now. We're on the Sirius XM app.
Wow.
So you can get us on Sirius XM and on YouTube and wherever else you get your podcast from.
Dude, serious?
Yeah.
There you go.
See, there you go.
Chuck Everson and Howard Turner. There you go.
Who'd have thought? Who'd have thought, B?
Long Islanders back together.
That's it, man.
All right, Chuck. Thanks.
Thanks, pal. All right, you take